following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Well there, good afternoon, welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. We are live for the big match reaction. Celtic get beat in the end, Rangers 3, Celtic 2, coming in at 2-0 at half time. Well, it could have went a lot worse. We'll break it down, we'll talk about what was better in the second half, what was worse, bring it all together. What do we think here? It's not the result we wanted. It's disappointing, it's bitterly disappointing, as Neil Lennon used to say, but as we say, regardless of the score, we'll be here to put our opinions to the front. If you're getting involved, make sure you tell us what you think in the comments. We'll try and get up as many of them as possible. As you can see, once again, some of the preview in half-time. Joe Donnelly is back to talk about it. Joe, before we crack on, do a wee bit of housekeeping. Disappointing, eh?
Disappointing, absolutely. The performance first half was just, the way I described it in text messages, etc., was diabolical.
Yeah.
Because it's the only word that I could pick out that truly said how I felt about it. Second half, better, but not to the level that we should be or are in other games. So, the scoreline reflected that. There's no two ways about it.
Well, plenty to talk about. We'll get right in about it. As we say, as it stands at the moment, Celtic 75 points, Rangers in 62. They are well out of sight. The league is pretty much a formality, as we well know. The treble is still on, but as we say, it's one of the ones. As it stands at this moment in time, Rangers have outscored Celtic and outperformed Celtic in the 3 derby games. Now, do you get a trophy for that? No, you don't. But again, it all comes back to it. When it all comes around to May and we've got that trophy, yep, we'll forget about these things. However, it'll still linger in the memory, because if I were to say to you at the start of the season, mate, you'll lose all 4 derby games, but you'll win the league. Of course, you'll take the trophy, but that bit of you inside as a fan, you're going, well, I don't want it. People say bragging rights trophy or whatever, but the reality is you never want to lose to your rivals. You never want them to get the better of you in those games, even if you get the better of them in a season, because more often than not, in years gone by, these games ultimately do decide where the trophy goes. But I'd be just fortunate. They've been absolutely garbage up to this point, but it's a lot to take away from it. There's a lot of learning points and there'll be a lot of food for thought. So we'll get right in about that. But before we do, just welcome back to every single person, as we always say. If you're a continued subscriber, welcome back, and thanks for your continued support. If you're new, then a warm welcome yourself as well. Just make sure you do one thing and one thing only. It costs you absolutely nothing. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon. You get notified every time we go live. And if you like what you've seen here, you get the wee thumbs up, share it out there, help grow the community. And we say we're glad to every single one of you for joining us here. We know that everybody and their granny, all the other podcasts, everybody's on, because it's a big game, it's a big day. Some that can't be arsed sometimes are back. Some that you've never heard, the new podcasts are popping up every day because there's a big game on. But we're glad that you've decided to join and talk about the game with ourselves. So let's get on about it, mate. We pretty much covered that first half, and I think I stand by my maybe emotional, in the moment sort of reaction. I having a wee look at it and think at half time, no, I wouldn't change a thing. I came out here and I absolutely slaughtered Celtic to a man. I described it as pathetic. You described it as diabolical. I said it was embarrassing, and I said I was ashamed. And I still stand by that. That first half was absolutely one of the worst things that we've ever seen. We managed to get it back round in the second half, as we well know. But for you, if you look at it, full performance, start to finish, where are you at this one, Joe?
Still, in terms of full performance, if you take, say, a regular Celtic full performance where it's a 3-0 win is a 8 out of 10 performance, but you still think, there's still a wee bit more in there. They could have kept going, they could have put more in, etc. That for me was about a 2 out of 10, genuinely, because it's just there was no cohesion between a lot of the players. There just wasn't the right passing. There wasn't the right communication. There was so many flaws in every part of the game and every part of the field as well. As I said at half time, and it continued into the second half as well, Davidovski was our best fucking player out there. I don't understand it, but he just was. Now, we all said at the start, I don't know about that, oh my God. But true to his form, he's been in training. He's obviously been working with the manager, and he's been talking about what he needs to do.
And do you know, it's interesting,
play
mate,
to him.
because they mentioned Big Crocker, who's absolutely horrendous to listen to. He did make a good point, and they were talking about Narotsky, and he actually turned around and said that, if you recall, he was dropped into a game against Rangers in a derby, and
Yep.
probably his last proper performance for Celtic, and again, was absolutely fantastic in that.
Mhm.
Well, it's one of those ones that is hard to put your finger on to say, well, what is the deal with the guy? Because again, generally speaking, everybody was extremely poor, but
Mhm.
anytime he was called upon, he looked pretty damn steady and he looked good. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the problem is the second half was greatly improved, no doubt about it. Absolutely. But listen, it would have been hard to not be better than what we saw in that first half. If Celtic came out and were any worse than they were in that first half, then we would have had a really, really bad day. But yeah,
Do you know what though? That's how I looked at the second half. Whenever the second half was kicking off, I actually sat back on the couch and I was like, well, it's going to be downhill from here. It's going to be 4-5-0. God, it's to them.
no, I
Don't know
know.
how. I'm sitting
Harsh.
thinking, how am I going to sit through this? And then we'll talk about it, I'm sure. But
Yep.
Maeda saves the day almost. Gets the spirits back up.
Mhm.
Screaming at the telly, I'm chanting, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
it's,
as I say, bringing your thoughts if people are doing it. And I think I'll bring this in for Woozy, if hopefully I've said that right. He says, bad day at the office, need to calm down, one trophy. And what I would say on that from a personal standpoint, let me know what you think of this. The reality is, we come on here and we talk. We want to be honest. We want to be open. We want to be realistic. It would be easy, as I say a million times, for us to just put it down. And we put on our social media at half time. We says, what are the excuses going to be for this one? We didn't
Mhm.
turn up. Bad day at the office. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the reality is, aside the game, the first derby of the season, the cup final was nip and tuck, escape to victory, probably get away with one. The game at Ibrox was an absolute shambles. We looked at the cup final and we says, get into the game at Ibrox, Celtic will never be that bad again. Bad day at the office. Bad day
And
at the
look what's
office
happened.
at Ibrox.
Aye,
So
look what's happened.
bad day at the office at Celtic Park. Now, it's not to diminish what we have done here. Yeah, in the fullness of time, one cup in the bag, we'll lift the trophy. That's inevitable.
Mhm.
More than likely a treble. And we'll look back and we'll say, brilliant. And you can have your moment in the sun and all that. But as we say, there's an element of fortune at the same time that Rangers have been in that much disarray where the actual competition of it hasn't been there. So, you look at that and you sort of think to yourself, how far can we use this bad day at the office chat or we didn't turn up and on our game? Because people just make judgments based on their eyes, and it is a one-off game. And every game against Rangers, I know it's a league and it's 4 in a season plus maybe cup games, but that is always looked upon as being the benchmark match. That's the match that you want to turn up in. That's the match that you need to perform. I know it means nothing, the bragging rights. You want to beat your city rivals. You want to lord it over your mates. And yeah, winning trophies
fact
is
of the
brilliant.
matter
If
is,
you come away at the end of the season and you have been bested by them on a 1-to-1 basis, that still hurts. And
Yeah.
trophies will make you feel better about that 100%. But the reality is, I wouldn't change beating them every game and not winning the league. I wouldn't do that. But there's got to be a mid balance in this moment in time. Celtic are behind in the head-to-heads in the league. And just to speak broadly, based on what I've seen the past 2 games, do I think that we are suddenly going to turn up and smash them? No, I don't. I think that game's very much up for grabs and up for question as well, mate.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. The fact of the matter is, derbies matter no matter what. You could be 20, 30 points, whatever you want to call it, in the lead or behind or whatever it may be. Derbies matter in any league at all. You look at Liverpool, Everton, they matter. Liverpool top of the league, Everton absolutely sacked off, and they're not going to win it for the next 20 years by the looks of things. But when they go up head to head, it still matters what the scoreline is.
Yep.
And it matters not on the league table, but in here. Because you want to see your team do the best against everyone, obviously.
Absolutely,
and when
mate.
it's your biggest and oldest rival, you need to at least be putting up a proper fight. Now, I would say in the second half, we did finally put up a proper fight, but
Mhm.
it just wasn't good enough. And why was it not good enough? Why were the players not prepared for a team that's played 120 during the week and went to penalties?
Mhm.
As we spoke about, they could use that as an excuse. But we also have to think about that as a matter of fact. They are shattered. They are done in.
Mhm.
We know they would be because we would be as well.
Well,
And
you
we
did
would use
see
that
that.
as ours.
You did see that. We came out, whatever, we could say what a difference a team talk makes. And the biggest point was when we put in the socials, we says, where did this Celtic performance, where was this Celtic in the first half? Now, the
Mhm.
reality is, we've seen this in seasons gone by where sometimes it was sometimes the case under Ange, it was sometimes the case in the first season under Brendan Rodgers, where we would have to get a shot in the arm from going behind
Yep.
and saying to ourselves, right, we need to repair this, we need to fix this. Almost as if like it's just you're coasting, and then when what you probably in your head or expect to happen doesn't pan out, it's like, all right, we're that comfy, and that reacts. And you could say that as good management, you could say that as good quality of players to bounce back and drag themselves back into the game. But at the same point, it shouldn't have to come to that. And as we say, the large, the reactions people are saying it's scandalous. It's really, really dodgy. And as we say here, and Dom mentions, derbies would usually, in years gone by, would decide the league. And they could do next season. Now, this could be
Yep.
another false dawn. Of course it could. People are sitting here and saying, or might say, well, it's brilliant for us because between getting to the quarterfinals and beating us at Parkhead, that's given Brogy Barry the job, right? Ha ha ha, another crap manager, right? And that's fine. I genuinely do think that it's definitely gave him a real bit of stock, and
Mhm.
there's a conversation for them to be had in terms of making his manager. Do I think that he has got what it takes in them to go to the next level? No, I look at it and I think it's very similar to teams, look at down in England, for example. Solskjaer comes in, picks up the team, gets given the job dead flippantly. It doesn't happen. And I think that's exactly what could happen here with
Yeah.
him. It's a situation where it could be overwhelming favourites. Fans swell, they're riding the crest of a wave, they're loving it, staunch, we're back and all that, and they bring him in, and it literally is a new player bounce or a new manager bounce that they're getting, and they're coasting
And
through that.
that's exactly what happened with Clement and others before him as
Mhm.
well. So I'm not worried about that side of things. When it comes to Rangers managers, I'm not worried because as soon as they lose 2 or 3 games on the trot, which
Mhm.
will inevitably happen, whether it's up against us or others, they just will. They'll lose at some point.
Yeah.
They'll be calling for the manager to be chucked out anyway. So I
Mhm.
genuinely couldn't care less as to who manages Rangers ever and forever
Mhm.
because it makes no difference. I don't think they have a little bounce back. That's what happens. But
Mhm.
420 is right. We should never lose a home derby game.
No,
That's,
you,
as you say, embarrassing.
you shouldn't, and that's the thing. And it might sound like harsh language, and a lot. We know that there's a lot of fans out there that are perhaps maybe I'll say it, are a bit overly sensitive to criticism. How dare you criticise it? And look at the bigger picture and look at what we've achieved. But then again, there could be that resting on your laurels sort of thing for Celtic. We've lorded it over Rangers for so long. We've had it so good that the reality is, can that continually happen? Will we continually be in that position? Unknown. The winds of change are potentially coming for them. How that manifests itself is a complete unknown question mark, but it would be ignorant of us to not take notice of what's happened in the past 2 derbies and potentially looking to the last one, what may or may not happen there as well, because there's a lot of uncertainties about that. But there's one thing you can say for sure. We'll go there. We'll make a lot of noise as their fans did. Hopefully, we end up with a day like today from that. But there's real lessons to be learned here. And I think there's maybe an element of complacency amongst not only us as a fan base, but also as the team, the
Hmm.
manager. Because let's be honest here, we always talk about how better we are financially and the amount of millions that our players cost and how they're better and how if we turn up and play our game and we've got an elite manager and so on and so forth. Well, the reality is you have been done by a team who have played 120 minutes, were dead on their feet, still managed to pick yourself up and have the chest pumping brigade doing their management, who as
Aye.
managers are far from elite, and are a failed experiment at
Yep.
lower level teams. That team of supposed garbage and that management who are laughable have been able to come and dethrone the high and mighty elite manager that's Brendan Rodgers,
Yep.
Celtic Park, and all the wealth that goes with it.
Exactly.
As Dom saying, this is a wake-up call.
Wake up call.
People
Yep, 100%.
can shy away and find 1,000,001 excuses, but it just goes to show you that nothing is guaranteed. Wealth, trophies, recent history can go for nothing.
Yeah.
I still feel there's a lot of repair work to be done at Celtic.
100%. During that game, I must have thrown my phone across the floor about 3 or 4 times because I'm just going, how the heck can this be happening? As we said, it would just be embarrassing for it to have even been considered when we thought about it before. For it then to become reality and so harsh reality as well, that it was just unfathomable in my mind. I could not believe it. Now, we can all batter on, and I'm sure there will be conversations and bits in the comments of ref calls and whatever else it may be. Yes, I screamed and shouted about all the same ones you guys did, I'm sure. But at the same time, it just shouldn't have even been brought into question because we should have been 2-0, 3-0, whatever up at half time or later.
So looking at the
And
game, looking at the game full, obviously we've done the half time one. Folk might have not been there for it. There was not too
Yep.
much to really write home about in terms of that performance. Very, very poor. As Steve was saying there, yeah, and it's quite embarrassing. You know, we've seen Ferguson outdo Mourinho, and then we've seen Ferguson outdo Brendan Rodgers. That's the reality of it. We did know how
it's a
Rangers were
scary
playing.
line now.
They went for that 5. They went for the 3 in the middle. They went for Diamandi, Raskin, and Barron. Barron was largely anonymous, but they were compact. They were battling. They were hard in the challenge. Whether you think the referee was too lenient or whatever is interesting, but yeah, we knew exactly what we were going to get, and we did fall into the trap. You know, starting from the very beginning, it was disjointed and it was literally a game of two halves for Celtic's perspective. But
Aye.
how was it naivety, mate? What was it? How did we manage to be
I think
so
it's
easily
always,
undone by basic tactics and
I
very
think it's
little
always
attacking threat,
naivety.
if we're being honest?
Absolutely, absolutely. They had what? Just Dessers pretty much. We had pretty much just Dessers trying to run it into the box. So you think to yourself, how the hell did they get anywhere near? But no, as you say there, it is absolutely naivety. And it's the naivety that maybe us as fans as well all had and will forever have, in all honesty, up in these derbies because we always want to think we're going to come out on top no matter what. But did Brendan sit back and go, listen, just, go out there, play your best, guys, and,
Yeah.
did he no G them up? Did he not give the speeches that they need, give the points and the pressure and go, listen, this is it. I don't care how the league sits. This is it. They've bet us in the last one. Let's not make sure this happens again. We need to make sure that we assert our dominance here and put them down. They've played this, that, and the next thing in the middle of the week. Maybe that's what it's been. Maybe he's not
I
been
think
there for the players.
I think as well as the sheer disappointment and, for me at least, disgust of the defeat, it also is another ego bashing for these players and for the manager. Now, again, I want my players to be confident. I want my manager to be confident. But again, when we look back to the way that Brendan was talking before the game at Ibrox, rightfully confident in what he's doing, would I say slightly dismissive of the opposition? Perhaps. Undertones of arrogance and laughing and we've always been told this is going to happen. The exact same thing happened again.
What I would say is there's a difference between confident and cocky, a massive one. I spent a lot of my younger years in sales and everything like that, and you could see the ones that were cocky and the ones that were confident. There's a massive difference between the two, and I think that's what it's been. We've edged too close towards that cocky side of things.
And even that, with the way that the verbiage that the manager's using now, he was asked a question And I think that he was honest, but when you break it down, you read between the lines. He was asked about the manager and he says, we spoke about this earlier, where he essentially said, paraphrasing of course, that he didn't really see any difference in Rangers under Barry Ferguson.
Yeah.
He looked towards their results, their losses, and their performances against Fenerbahce, against Motherwell, against Queen's Park, against St Mirren, and he's not seen anything different. Now, he again comes in and says, I know him as a player, respect him as a player, he knows what it's all about, blah, 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 etc., etc. But I don't really know much about him for coaching aspect. And then he basically got on a wee bit in his pedestal and spoke about the difference of knowing where it's in here and coaching in a coaching aspect, and essentially just went, without saying it, they're shite for a coaching aspect.
Yeah. He's dismissed them. He dismissed them.
How much does that creep in? How much does that creep in the players' mindset getting in this? Because they've maybe been old school. Of course they have. Siege mentality. But Celtic, there's a wee phrase that sometimes that the wolf, or in this case the bear, that's climbing the hills a wee bit more hungry than the one at the top of it. Absolutely. Have you fallen into that trap once again, mate?
Absolutely. It's easier in anything, in any sport as well. It's easier to chase than it is to lead, no matter what. So when you're in the lead, you've got it all to lose, no matter what. And we said that as well a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. When you're in the lead, it's so much easier to lose out and become complacent, become, just for things to fall on deaf ears, because you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, it's all right, we've got the team, we've got this, and if I drop the ball, he's there to pick it up, and whatever else it may be. And that just cannot be the attitude. You need to act always like you're chasing. You need to be going for that opportunity that no one else will go for. Go for the gaps. And that's what we absolutely failed at today.
Yeah, no, it's been really, really disappointing. So he says that first half, it was completely against the odds. They were penning us in, got a lot of purchase. We had one or two fleeting chances near the end, but it was lackluster. It was weak. It was limp. There was no real battle. There was no real fight in it. It was very, very strange, and it's hard to really pick through the bones of it and take any real positives. Now, the second half, whatever was said, definitely seemed to have worked. We came out, but not to diminish the turnaround, because we looked sharper, we were doing all the right things, moving the ball about, really putting them under pressure. But at the same time, I have to ask this question for the balance of it all. How much was our improvement to do with solely what we were doing, but also a combination of they looked dead in their feet? See, around that 55 onwards, I'd say between 55 to 80 minutes, they looked dead in their feet. They looked every ounce a team that had played 120 minutes midweek, mate. And everything into the first half.
I said the same in the group chat. At one point, I said, God, Czerny looks dead in his feet. Why are we not making the most of this? Why are we not taking this opportunity and making sure that we absolutely run them down, run them everywhere around the pitch, and make sure they're absolutely shattered and done in? They already were to an extent, but they'd already got the advantage. By the time we became level, they still had just that tiny amount enough in the reserve. And as we spoke about before, their bench was strong. And that's exactly what happened. I said it before the match even started. I said, Igamani, he's good for a goal at times. And look who's just absolutely done us.
And that's the thing, is that second half really did become a case of fine margins. I felt in the second half, obviously we take the early lead, sort of 3-4 minutes into the game for Maeda. It's a brilliant header. We obviously shift things about. We make the right substitution. Kuhn comes off. But let's just talk about him a wee bit, because there's a lot coming in here from it. Again, Big Dom, where's Kuhn been there? There's been a lot of people saying that he's hiding.
Yeah.
I think it's hard, and I don't want to go down that criticising route and singling out players. But I think one thing is very, very true, is Kuhn came in with a level of expectation, was extremely poor in his first season. We now know that there was injuries there. There was a mouth issue, and it affected a lot of weight loss. He then looked fantastic through pre-season and really carried that on. Now, he's a young guy. Yes, so consistency will always be an issue with these guys, but form-wise for me, he has fallen off a cliff. And I even got texts during the course of the game. Well, again, it's reactionary from a lot of people who were saying, if rumours are true about Kuhn wanting to be sold, then do it, because he's maybe hit a patch where he's looks fantastic, but that's as good as he's wrote. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm not prescribing to that, but what's your thoughts on that?
I've said it for a good while now that despite Kuhn being a good player and all right for a goal at times as well, because I think he's had two worldies that I would say were top performance. The rest have been a bit okay. You know, any player in that position could tend to put it in. I've always said that he gets run down very easily, gets covered off very easily, because I think that a lot of teams think he is a bigger threat sometimes than what he even is, and that he's not lost any. I don't think he's lost any talent. Put it that way. I don't think he's lost any talent. So I think that if we kept him on for another season, we wouldn't be making a bad choice. But if we sold him on, I also would not be heartbroken. Put it that way. I would be more heartbroken if Maeda went. I would be way more heartbroken. But if we were to lose Kuhn, I don't think I would lose much sleep over it, if I'm being honest.
I mean, how much does today's performance, obviously, like, we're here to talk about things and break it down and pick through the bones of it all, and you know, there's a lot of people that are right over saying it. We move on, we've been beat, it is what it is. But you know, we can sit here and say that. I wouldn't be watching a show if that's what we did say. But the questions are: we knew that the squad was thin. We know that there's injuries. Cal McGregor, Bernardo, just throw them out there. Even Scales for an option there, and it looked extremely thin. But this is, as some people are saying, we can sit there and we can try and take as much comfort from the position that we're in and lording it over, and the inevitable that there's going to be another league trophy. We're going to have cups there, trophy haul, probably a treble, but it is slightly becoming a slight pattern of behaviour. Now, I know that it was a slight moment in time for them, and I know it was against the backdrop of no fans and it being miserable. But if you do remember the last time there was a slight shift in the way that things happened, where Rangers were the nearly rans, close, and then they got that win, and that was the monkey off their back, and they were able to just find a way, regardless of how they were playing elsewhere, to turn up and do the business against us.
Yeah.
I think the manager really needs to reinvent himself a wee bit here, because we're doing the same thing. It's back to the old, if plan A is not working, try and do plan A better. And I'm not seeing enough. I'm not seeing enough variation in the play.
Enough change. Yeah.
I think we came out, we made the changes that were necessary. I do think that the impact to Ida was really good. He was doing well at holding up the ball. He's worth his value. When he came on, changed it up. We went to Maeda through the left. Things were a bit more lively. But the reality is,
I think Yang played very well as well.
Yeah, the reality is we don't have, for me, that variation. We don't have different systems to adapt in game. And regardless of what you want to say about Rangers, how you want to say, like, part in the bus or whatever, he's come in and radically changed the way they play. And why has he done that? Because he knows that he doesn't have the squad to go and play 3-4 and expansive football. It's going to be brilliant in the eyes. So what does he do? He's almost went back to the pages of a Walter Smith, where he's made you hard to beat and know that you've got one or two guys as a good outball, and you'll outfight people. You'll be hard to break down. You'll be tough in the challenge, and your guys are that decent enough that if they get that wee moment in front of goal, that they're more than likely going to take it. With Celtic, we've had some fantastic performances. Let's not poo all over the rest of the season because of this. But looking at this game, looking at this fixture in isolation, we are in danger of this becoming a sticky issue, because it says the last one is at Ibrox. And again, the league could be won at that game. But let's say we go into that game and that is the one that we can win the league against it. Whereas you would normally say that's going to be bouncing, that'll get the job done. Equally, I'd argue the toss and say that's going to make them again harder to beat than they already have been, because they're going to want to stop that. They're going to want to stop the party at Ibrox. The manager has really, in my opinion, injuries and squad and everything aside, the manager has been found out a wee bit here. And he's been fantastic great adaptation and European fixtures for us. Don't take that away from him, but Brendan Rodgers has maybe been coasting, and the magic of this fixture's maybe rubbing off quite quickly off the past 3, cup final included.
Yeah, no, our performances against Rangers have been diabolical this season in general, and I don't think you can look past the fact that we're become so predictable that every team, not every team, but teams of a higher caliber, which usually I would not include the other side in,
Mm-hmm.
have been able to pick off the early escapes, the easy routes, the midfield lackluster attitude, the no cohesion throughout that midfield as well. They've been able to really pick it off,
Mm-hmm.
dissect it, and find their way through. The amount of times that they got through that midfield was frightening today, absolutely frightening.
Yeah.
So and you then can't turn around and try and fault defenders and everything like that for putting out for corners or whatever else it may be, because they've had to do that no matter what. I know it's a defender's job, but
Mm-hmm.
the way that they've had to put those balls out and get it away in a sheer panic, especially that we had today, was frightening and disgusting, as some people described it even as well.
Yeah.
I'm not one to usually use
No,
that word,
and
especially
and,
if
and
it's
this is the thing. Is listen, this is a bit a strange one for us to come on and talk about a match and it to be as disappointing. This, and I can understand. I can see some of the comments for like, "What's the panic?" and everything's better and this and that. There is no panic. We're not sitting smashing a panic button and thinking, "Oh my
no, we're
God,
not saying we're going to lose the league or anything
the
like that,
walls,
but
the walls are closing in and it's all over." As I say a million times, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I don't think sometimes people really grasp the point of what we're doing here. We're sitting having a conversation, we're analysing and looking at games. If we just go, well, do you know what, we can beat the day, it doesn't really matter because we're going to win the league anyway and the Rangers are shite. We
no.
could do that. But
You need to go by a game basis, no matter what,
you
no
know,
matter what team you're up against.
sometimes we have to sit here as people doing this and try to create chat and online content around Celtic. And sometimes as fans, we have to sit here and we have to have the unwanted conversations, the unfashionable conversations, the hard conversations, and pick out the bones. And, we're having a laugh if you want to sit there and try and pretend that it's all right and that we should be cool with it and just get on with it and smile happy and act. You know what? I'll flick on the Carabao Cup final with a couple of cans and I'll just forget about it because I won't. Because you know what? It's not going to rest. And I know it's irrelevant, but you'll flick on your social media and it'll be awash with all sorts of stuff. You'll want your work and you'll get panned off of your pals and your colleagues or whatever. You'll walk down past the boozer and you'll see other folks celebrating. You'll maybe be in the shop and you'll see the backs of papers. You won't be buying them because they're garbage, of course. You'll maybe listen to the radio and everything else in between. And that is it. That's the thing is, as fans, we sit here and we live and breathe these things and you always want to have the positive. You can't win every single one of them, but I think in some cases it's how you lose them. And do I think that we deserve to lose it? If I'm being honest, yes, I do. Now, are we for a second half, 40 minutes of turning it around? Absolutely. You could say good value for money for a draw. But at the same time, Rangers winning, I said at half time when we done the show, I says, I'd be surprised if we bounce back. I says, I don't see Celtic come back and win this, let alone drawing it. I'm glad to say I was proven wrong and there was a spring in the step and there was a transformation in how we done it. However, at that same point, based off that first half, if I turned around like the Rangers are going to win the game, you'd be annoyed, you'd be angry, you'd be disappointed, but you probably wouldn't disagree with it. So why should we all of a sudden start disagreeing with it because they've done it in the end?
Yeah, no, exactly. The better of the two teams showed up today, and I think that's what's the biggest disappointing part of it. As you've said before, we've spent all these millions, we've spent all this money, we've got amazing players, we've got some fantastic plays that we can look back on and go, oh God, do you remember when Maeda done this? And you remember when Johnston and Kuhn done that and everything like that? That's what really hurts us most.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about what the final scoreline was, because at the end of the day, we fought back, we came back as hard as the players could, I would think, in the second half.
Definitely.
Not in the first, but as hard as the players could come back in the second half, that's exactly what they done. I think they did give it everything, and for that, I will give them a bit of respite, if you will. But it's not been good enough because they let it slip so far and so badly in the first half, and that just shouldn't be happening at this
And
level.
again, you said about the investment in the squad. Now,
Mhm.
could it be more? Of course it could.
Of
Absolutely.
course,
We always wanted
aye,
it to be more. But then
yep,
if we take a step back and we look at that, we're playing against a side who are cash strapped, obviously takeover pending. That may well change. I don't think it will be as drastic as they expect. But again, you never know. To take it at face value. But yes, there's the point. I've always says on this podcast, time after time, that I expect with the riches that Celtic have got, with the accessible ability to money, with the Champions League, that kind of thing, Celtic need to spend more to get, in principle, in theory, better quality on the pitch, with one eye of trying to do that wee bit better in European competition, getting more money and improving results there. However, the result of that being you spend more to try and do better there. And in theory, it should mean the domestic stuff takes care of itself because you get better players,
absolutely,
right?
yeah,
Today's result, the result at Ibrox, kind of completely belie that entire point.
yeah,
That's the thing. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be. We know what the border like. We'll go up and we've spent loads of money on players, and it's not yielding the results we want, or it is, but we're still very sort of nip and tuck against Rangers. I don't think that'll discourage that, but you can also see the frustration of that because we have invested heavily, we have invested well in various positions, and they haven't performed against Rangers.
The-
Yes, by large, we've had a very good season. I'll never detract from that. But
yeah,
again, we're just looking at these games in isolation. And I'm not saying that Rangers are suddenly going to spring into life and they're going to be danger and Celtic are going to be scrapping for their lives next season. Far from it, because I would expect a reaction from us. I would expect us to act accordingly, give the manager the depth, give them the improvement that we need. But at the same time, you've got to look at maybe where they are. There's been an element of fortune as well, because
yeah,
the reality is I know you can only take care of your own house and beat was put in front of you, right? But Rangers lost so many points against absolute guff in the league,
yep,
and there was clear fractures in their relationship, management, board, players, where they just chucked it in. They weren't interested. That's a great slice of fortune for Celtic. There was occasions where we
yeah,
dropped points and they couldn't take advantage. Now, in a different parallel universe, derbies will make a difference. And they will
absolutely,
judge it based on that. At the end of the season, it might finish that Celtic win the league by 16 points. It could be whatever, right? And that's huge on paper. But they'll look at the head-to-heads and where they drop points in the sort of randomer games. And they'll probably think within themselves, we're not really that far off it. Whether you believe that or
yeah,
not, whether that's reality or not, that's the way that they'll look at it. And that might just, if they get new owners, make enough for them to push the boat out a wee bit more. So my point I'm trying to get is we need to take care of business, which we have done by and large, but not also depend on or think that we're going to get away with favours, because we have. We have a lot of
yeah,
time up this season. And
yeah,
as I says again, I mentioned it, 2 out of 3 derbies, they've outscored us. On paper, head to heads, they've scored more goals than Celtic and they've bettered us in the league. The cup's a sideshow, and we've
Well,
managed to get that one over the
it's
line.
that complacency that we were talking about before. Do you know, like if we bottled it in that game big time, totally understand that because although we've came out on top
Mhm.
majority of games, as you said before, it's only because as
2
well
games. I just
Rangers
want to
have
bring this up because again, I don't, I'm not snapping at anybody, but this frustrates the life out of me, and that's not a
yeah,
personal shot at you, Snitch. We greatly appreciate you watching us all the time. Sport's fantastic, but I see this, and this is, I'm just bringing it up because it's the context there. I see this online. I saw it midway through the game. I saw messages from friends. It's a level of denial. Yes, we are ahead of them, but you're only as good as your last game, and you're only as good as
yeah,
your last season. Now, yeah, we'll finish this season, as I say, is more than likely with a treble, and that's the thing. We'll look back at it, and in fullness of time, it won't matter. But at the same time, it does, because we're so far ahead, but we're also, at this moment in time, so far complacent. That's the problem that I've got, is the complacency is absolutely 100% creeping in to this side again. That element of invisibility, or invincibility, sorry, where you're untouchable because we've got all the money. We can have all the money they want. Look at Man City. Arse is falling out them.
Yep.
Best players in the league, best manager in the league, best finances. Arse is falling out them.
Yep.
Why? Complacency. If it can happen to Man City, don't believe that it can't happen to Celtic.
100%.
And that maybe sounds
100%.
drastic, and that maybe sounds, fire and brimstone and so negative. But again, I always like to believe, or consider myself a bit of a realist here. I look at things holistically. I look at the whole picture here. I don't just get into my wee green specks. Yes, another treble. Get it up, ye. Because we've seen you can lose trophies like that.
It's not just that. Like, see, and I don't know about you, but when I flick through Facebook, Instagram, whatever, from time to time, you get these videos coming up of the highlights of certain matches, old matches, and everything like that. For instance, Bruni up against Diouf. Great pose, great shirt, great scarf it made, and everything like that. But that game alone ended up a blooming draw, and it was a horrible draw as well. It was a disgusting draw. So you're sitting back and going, well, it's not just that we'll remember as the brilliant pose and the highlight of one of Bruni's best moments. You look back and go, well, that was a horrible derby and a loss when you think about it as well. A draw is a loss in a derby. That's the way I look at it. And a lot of people will agree with that. A lot will not, and that's absolutely fine. I totally get it. Whether we're a million points in the lead or not is irrelevant. Derby, and we need to be on top of it as much as possible. See, if you said to me, you lose 5-0 to St Mirren halfway through the season, but you'll win every derby, I'd take the 5-0, no bother at all, and I'd take every derby because I'd rather that than anything else.
I think that when I look at it, and we'll obviously get into a wee bit of the action, we've sort of just went off in a more philosophical outlook
Yes, we
on
have,
the,
I know,
on the larger picture. But I think that I definitely think that when we look at it, where we are, I think it's time for Celtic now to get back to basics. Now the season's done. Let's get real here. Are we going to start with that this season, starting for now? Probably not. Probably not. We just go with the status quo and we push on and we hope that we can bounce back and learn lessons, get into that final game, because there's no doubt about it. See that final game against Rangers at Ibrox? That is humongous. That's like a cup final. That's like a title decider, even though it won't be, because yes, we will have the title in the bag. We'll be on course, more than likely, on touching distance of treble. But if Celtic
have we had news yet, by the way, if fans are getting allowed into that as well?
I don't know. But if we don't win that game, if we do not win that game, then and I know it's only narrative and it doesn't matter because it's all about points on the board, but from a psychological standpoint, that's watershed. Yeah. Celtic have never needed a win against Rangers more than they do get into that game at Ibrox. And it's important that we reverse the result here, that we right the wrongs, which we were saying we need to do today. Yeah. And you'll get it. Beating them in their own midden and all this, and it'll go on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it'll be drilled into you until the next one comes around the corner. And again, I know it's only narrative and you block out the noise now, but the reality is that this is the first time in a derby perspective that Celtic and a lot of these players have really faced proper adversity. Because if it's so good for so long, you could maybe write off the tightness of the cup final and the 3-0 as we just didn't turn up. But now it's become a pattern of dips putting performances against them, and they've never needed a result more than they will come the game at Ibrox. Yeah. But what I'm saying is when we move on to the end of the season, once everything's done, the smoke's settled, I think Celtic need to get back to base camp. They need to get back to basics. Now, I'm not saying that they get down what Rangers are doing route where it's all about chest pumping and what it means and blood snorters and thunder and all that kind of stuff. But Celtic need to get everything stripped back. And I'm not saying this is the management way of doing it. Maybe it is what Rodgers does, but maybe there's an element of a wee bit of a dressing down that needs to be made to some of these players.
Yeah.
Because they're used to being the top dogs, they're used to being the champions, they're used to swaggering in, making mega money, and it's a canter.
I think they need to look at it
back
on
down.
I think they need to look at it on an individual level and go, listen, Maeda, you were outrun by X, Y, and Z. Jota, you were covered by whoever. This is what they need to do. They need to have that comparison and go, this is who you're up against for the season, not just for the match, for the season. This is who I'm going to compare you against. See if you're not performing over and above that, then we need to have words. This is where you need to be. This is what you need to do. That's, for me, the way that you get someone motivated in the right manner to be able to take on whoever it is at the time of the match.
Yeah. Well, let's have a wee look back at the action. We covered the first half. So the second half, we say, there's a wee change. I think Kuhn, it goes without saying, everybody, I can see the comments, a lot of folk were far from enamoured by Kuhn's performance. Again, there's room for this guy to bounce back, but it's another derby, it's another disappointing outing. It wasn't the greatest there. We started live and we looked a lot better. We moved over Maeda, and of course he gets the goal. It's a great header. It's a good bit of play for Jota. Gets by his man and does that classic sort of Jota hooked in crossover at the back. It's a header. But at that point, as soon as that goes in, you hear the roar, you hear the laugh of the crowd. Celtic have got their tails back up, and as we say, Rangers are starting to really, really look tired. However, they still managed to get a wee bit of purchase.
Yep.
Dessers gets through. Carter Vickers makes a right good interception there. A couple other things as well. I didn't think McCowan was particularly good. I felt that he was poor in the first half. Yes, I know you'll point me to the setup that he does for Hatate, but I felt that certainly in terms of the whole game in the midfield, he was definitely the weakest link for me out of the players that were there. Yeah. People maybe say, what was Engels doing? Engels was still doing a lot of dirty work, wasn't particularly effective, but I didn't think he was as maybe costly or reckless as McCowan in there. Yeah. But I thought the change was good.
I've criticised McCowan many a times, as we know. I didn't think that he played today as well as what he has in the past two outings. So, it was disappointing for me, but was he worst on the pitch? No, I don't think so. I was actually really disappointed with Schlupp. He done well at times to pass forward, pass back. That was fine. But his interceptions were just terrible. I just didn't find that he intercepted the ball very well or knew the state of play, as in where it was going next. He didn't read it very well at all for me. So I was quite disappointed with that because I would have had him as a certainty to be able to read the match very, very well.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. A lot of people are saying the way it's set up, I thought they were good. We got a good wee sort of a purchase. We were starting to really push things. And as I say, I felt that it's fine margins, and I really do. I detest that phrase, but it's a reality. And it's when we look at it, obviously, in the deep end of the game, they get their one chance and they take it. There's a wee slice of fortune for Eagleman, but we had a couple of chances whilst they looked absolutely dead in their feet, and we didn't take it. The quality there, the killer touch wasn't there. I think it's a good goal for Hatate. I thought Hatate lifted his game. There was a couple of decent shots, a couple that were just narrowly wide. He showed a lot more action. He looked more up for it. And it's a good finish. I was giving McCowan dog's abuse, but it's a nice wee slip through pass, and it's an easy pass into the net by Hatate. A nice tidy finish there. But I thought, at that point, I'm like, right, here we go. Against what I said when we came on at half time, slaughtering them, and I'll never change that. I think it was deservedly so, based on what I'd seen with my eyes, and I didn't see it coming. So I was extremely happy to see how we picked up our game. But
me too.
Again, we just couldn't make it count when it really, really mattered, and ultimately that cost us. It was a escape to victory for Rangers, a real big slice of luck, but some of the chances were, we had, for example, was the cross through Johnson late on, and it just completely bounces off him in the centre of the park, and then that late one where he just flashes it over, literally the last kick of the ball for Celtic, and various other chances. It just felt that we weren't stretching the game enough, because we were just weren't getting our foot on the ball and controlling it. And the couple of chances we had were maybe half chances, but we really should have been doing better. I think that we really should. I like the look of Yang. I did look at the look of Yang. And
really like the look. You took the words right out of my mouth there. I absolutely loved the look of Yang. I think he played very, very well. I was worried actually when he had that bad tackle as well. It did look like a sore one, his and Maeda's. Maeda's not one to lie on the ground and roll about or anything like that.
There he is.
It was quite worrying. Oh, Paddy boy.
Paddy, who's fresh in for the game. Paddy, join the, how would we say it? Is it I don't know. What is it?
Is it a conversation? Is it a slating?
Is it a conversation? Is it a slater? Is it a post-mortem?
Aye, kind of post-mortem, if I'm going to be honest. I thought there was a lot of passengers on our side today. I've obviously not seen much of what you guys have covered already, but there was far too many passengers. I heard you talking about Luke McCowan there, Steve. Garbage. Honestly, second touch was a tackle. Every single time he got the ball, he just felt like he was going to give it away. He just didn't look comfortable at all. Arnie Engels, I thought, was probably our best player. Now, you know how hard that is for me to say.
Well, we actually were just talking about, we're talking about the midfield, and as I say, I think the first half was an absolute shocker. I think that there was maybe an element of complacency, and as I say, we're talking on, even though McCowan does the setup for Hatate and there's a good pass into him, I felt that he was the weakest out of the three in the midfield. Engels, I says, people maybe say, well, what did he do? But you've rightfully just come in and says he was doing all that dirty, sort of unfashionable stuff and making things tick over. Did you think, just to talk on that midfield, was Callum McGregor a big miss? Was it really noticeable?
Yes, 100% noticeable. Callum drags players into the game when they start to get that lethargic way, like Hatate always does. We know Hatate drifts in and out of games. Callum's the one that drags him back in. Now, you've seen that with Rio as well. He was drifting in and out of the game a little bit, had a few shots here and there. Obviously takes his goal really, really well. But I thought, Callum was severely missed in there. And look, McCowan done this role when he was at Dundee. He done the Callum McGregor role. He was the person that orchestrated the midfield. Now he's come in here and he just looked totally out his depth. When we done the preview of this game, we looked at him and we said, you know what, he's probably going to play. And this is the time when he needs to show. He didn't show anything for me. He showed that he wasn't fit. He didn't have confidence. He doesn't know how to pass a ball forward, other than the one for the goal. I think every other pass he played was backwards. Jeffrey Sloop, I thought, was horrible as well.
To jump in there real quickly on McCowan, I actually felt that when I watched that, listen, I like him. I'm a big fan of him, and I think that there's a place for him. I think that we need that kind of player as an option. It's different. Obviously, again, he's still got to get through, and I'll be more judgmental once he's had a full pre-season. He's up to Celtic standard in terms of fitness and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. But I always felt that he looked quite heavy-footed. He looked like he was at times running through treacle. He looked a bit sort of slow by comparison to the other guys, so the fitness levels and things like that. And that was always going to be a problem for us, because we knew we looked at that bench, we didn't have the options. We had Turley, we had Bonner, but again, young guys, and particularly when we were in that position, we were chasing the game, we looked behind. It's a big ask to go to them, bring them on. So you knew that you were going to have to get largely the whole game out of these guys there. In terms of, you were at the game, watching it in living colour, what was the sort of mood music around those that were sitting around you? What was the observations there?
There was a lot of hatred going towards, obviously, Luke McCowan for playing the ball backwards. Sloop, every time he got the ball, didn't look comfortable at all. Just didn't want to do anything. On McCowan as well, he was second to every tackle. Every 50-50, he backed out it. He didn't look as if he had any bite about him at all. Narotsky, I thought, looked very uncomfortable He didn't look happy on the ball at all. He was backing off of challenges. He was giving players far too much time on the ball. If you look at the Igamani goal, if you look at the chance just before that as well, was it Czerny gets the ball and he backs off and he ends up going down onto one knee and trying to stop him that way. And it was just a very, very poor performance. I think if Austin Trusty's in there, probably 2 of the Rangers goals don't happen. I thought Nawrocki played pretty horrible.
I'm surprised by that.
This is interesting because there's been a lot of praise here for him. You were at the games, you seen things about it differently, the sort of wider view of the play. I actually felt that Nawrocki, considering a guy with 24 minutes on the pitch, I thought he looked fairly assured. In terms of your observations around Sloop, again, that's what makes football fandom. It's having different opinions. I didn't think he was that bad. I felt that he had a decent amount of physicality. There was a couple of times where he was able to shake off some tackles, keep hold of the ball and get through. Not his greatest performance, but at the same time, I didn't think it was particularly bad. In terms of us,
he was beat for pace a few times as well. You look at him running back, it's as if he was in first gear all the time. He never seemed to open gear.
See, we look at it. See the 3 goals that we concede, right?
Yeah.
For your value for money, because you were at it, are they exclusively defensive errors or individual error goals, or is it just a culmination of the fact that everybody, particularly the first 2, everybody was half asleep? Now, I'm not using that as an excuse because it was unacceptable, but they didn't waken up to the awareness, the alertness, the positional awareness of where they need to be. Particularly, yes, they were getting some crosses in the box and we were dealing with them a lot better. But when you look at the 2 goals that we lost, the first one, I think it's Johnson switches off, the header goes over. It's probably directed in the centre, but it goes all the way over. Everybody's looking at it, goal. The second one, again, I think we were a bit sleepy. It gets nodded down. But the third one's a slice of fortune that falls off. But how much are the goals for you to do with the criticism you've got around if trustees there, these don't happen? Is it as simple as defensive issues?
Yeah, for me, corners were horrible for corners. We're horrible for set pieces getting into the box. We know we are. We concede a lot of goals for issues like that. For me, you need somebody like Austin Trusty in there. I think he deals with the corner coming in. I don't think Alistair Johnson has to be in that position. Is it Raskan? I believe he's like the smallest guy in the park. Gets on the end of that. Do you know what I mean? That's just unforgivable. The second one, Diamandi's got far too much time on the ball and manages to, obviously, it's a good finish. Listen, it's a cracking finish for the boy, but we should be pushing, we should be pressing. There was no high press for Celtic. There was no intensity. There was no passion. That first half, there was just nothing. Schmeichel's, every time he got the ball, you thought he was just going to pass it to a Rangers player, and he did several times. It was hard to watch at some points, mate. And going into the second half, the guys round about me are going, "Oh, Celtic are 71 to win." I says, "Mate, I'll give you 8. I'll give you 9. Like, we're not going to win this. I'd settle for the draw right now." And
how much did you feel, Paddy? Sorry to jump in there. When we were discussing this, listen, we've got to give credit where it's due. We managed to make the subs, couldn't coming off, either coming on, makes a difference. Whatever was said in the dressing room, we certainly got a reaction, and we've got to be positive in that respect that we did turn it around within reason. Of course, we didn't see out the game, and that's the most important thing, but there was a definite change. The subs that came on did make an impact. All right, it was only 2, it was Ida and Yang, but they did do well. But how much was, from your eye, to do with the changes and just us playing our game? Was it simple as that, or was it a combination of that? But we think Rangers looked dead in their feet for about 60 minutes.
Yeah, Rangers did die off.
5 substitutions. We often says they had more options in the bench, so it was imperative for us to basically do our Rangers and go 2-0 up at half-time, force the changes early so that the legs will be heavy. They were able to ride the storm and bring those guys on late and get a bounce.
Aye, they were. And I thought every challenge, they were first into every challenge, and that really put us down a little bit. The heads went down a little. The changes at half time, obviously Ida coming on, who I thought again had an absolute snider. I thought Yang played really well.
This is interesting because we actually thought he'd done no bad. He put himself about, but there you go.
What did he do though? There was about 4 or 5 times when he tried to trap the ball and he gave it away.
I would say he didn't
trap a bag of
change the
sand.
rate of play. He didn't change the rate of play or the pace of play or anything like that. Is what I would say.
He didn't come short for
But
any
no, I thought
passes.
he
He
did.
didn't go into space. It was
I
just.
think the one thing that did
Yeah.
happen though was that with him coming on, and again, I usually hate this, and I've criticised this before, where you say, "Oh, if he's no scoring goals, at least he's doing this and that." When we moved over Maeda, it did free him up a wee bit more.
Yeah.
Because even though he wasn't really having a massive impact on the game, he was taking up a lot of attention. Because they 3 centre halves, and he was at least drawing 2 over to them.
Yeah.
So he was freeing up those around him, and it kind of slightly helped us in not in a tactical manner. I think they've just looked at it and went, right, he's now through the middle, he's our striker, he's the guy that we need to be taking care of. And again, maybe took the eye off the ball with the other guys that we've got, for your Hatate.
Created that chance for Maeda.
Exactly. So I think that's that. I think that's what's there. But in terms of the chances for Celtic through the game, we really didn't have that much. The second half, we scored at 70 minutes, 73 minutes or something like that. At that point, you think, right, we have really going to take them here. Did it look as obvious, Paddy, in the stadium as it did to me on the telly, where Rangers just knuckled down and rode it out 10 minutes, and by that point it was stretching. They had to survive that 10 to 15 minutes so that they could get the subs on, get the fresh legs on, and give them another chance.
Yeah, they went 6 at the back, I think, near the end as well. They had just brought on another defender for a striker.
On ACL as well, didn't they?
Yeah. So you look at it that way, and when we get the second goal, the mood changed around Celtic Park. It really did. The belief come back, and the crowd got back into the game, and the Rangers fans went silent, and it was brilliant. Now that was at that point you thought, right, here we go, we're going to push on now. But the players in the park didn't seem to get up for that, and that's where you need Callum. That's where you need your captain to go, right, wait a minute. And Carter Vickers, listen, he is what he is, and I don't think he's going to be our next captain. Obviously, we spoke about that previously. I don't think Carter Vickers is that man that's going to drag players back into the game. I don't think he's the guy that's going to lift players when their heads are down. If your head's still down to each, then what's wrong with you? You shouldn't be on that park, as far as I'm concerned.
Just when you're saying that, Paddy, like I was one who advocated actually Carter Vickers to be next captain, but I would agree with you that seeing that game, he just didn't show a bit of leadership at all. So, maybe I eat my words, and I'm totally fine with that, because he just didn't show the leadership. He didn't seem to, not once did he seem to G up anyone. Whereas even Engels, when he knocks it out at the side of the pitch, is going, come on, and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And that's, that's not like him even to do so. So are they, were the players maybe screaming out for that? That's something we've got to consider as well. Were the players screaming out for that captain role that Carter Vickers just couldn't fill today for whatever reason? It could be he was so far separated that he couldn't, or, you could come up with a couple of excuses, I'm sure, but it did disappoint me, I'll be completely honest, because I thought genuinely that he was the man to take the role in the future.
So what about Nicholas Kuhn, Steve? What was your thoughts on Nicholas Kuhn?
Well, we have covered it there. We did touch on it, and as I say, it's not to be negative about the guy. He's been a great performer this season. I definitely do think that for whatever reason his form is taking a dip off the edge of a cliff. I think in that early stage of the season, instrumental, undroppable. What a difference he made, and definitely up there for a contender for player of the season, whether that's in the sort of Celtic spheres or the national sort of player, and all that kind of stuff. I don't think he's any chance now getting that. I think he's a mile off it. But again, very, very disappointing from him. I don't know what it is. We had this chat, and again, I don't want to sell guys, but I seen a lot of comments. I was getting a lot of stuff throughout the course of the game. Needs to come off, needs to do this. If these rumours are true that he wants to go, wouldn't he miss him? He's hit a good point, and that's as good as he's going to get. I don't necessarily prescribe to that. I think that one thing's for sure, we are abundantly clear that we cannot just simply depend on him. We can't. And it again highlights the requirement for us to get at least a minimum of 2 wingers in, because yes, we can switch around Maeda, which we did do. We've got Jota, as strange off saying, looks like he's torn a caravan. Yeah, he's still a wee bit off the pace fitness wise. Forrest, again, bit part. He's still, I know you love him, mate, but the reality is he's on the wind down, and Yang still an unknown quantity. Gain comes on, looks good, but you can't depend on it. So we're going to need to get reinforcements in. I was very disappointed in Nicholas Kuhn again. Flatters to deceive, very one-dimensional. He's another guy that needs to find another level and an evolution in his game. I think that's what's my takeaway for this here, is that we said this before he came on, Paddy. Celtic need to get back to the drawing board here.
Yes.
It's pretty clear that, injuries aside, that we have been resting our laurels here. We've been maybe a wee bit complacency has been creeping in, and I think we need to tear it all up and get back to basics. A wee bit of home truths, a wee bit of humbleness coming back, and taking things as you're only as good as your last performance, you're only as good as your last season. You erase everything that you've done before and you start again. That's where I'm at with it. I think that the manager also needs to take a right good look at himself. I will say it, I have no problem saying it. I'm faithful to my team, always want to see him do well. But I said at half time, you're glad you weren't here. 2 hours were absolutely slaughtering him, and I said it was completely embarrassing. I said it was pathetic, it was limp, it was weak, it was embarrassing, and I was ashamed of Celtic in that first half, and I stand by that. And I think Brendan Rodgers, the coca invincibility is starting to wear off here. He needs to take a right good look at himself. We talk about elite players, elite manager, hundreds of finance. We're so far ahead of Rangers as a club, but the reality is in head-to-heads, we're, at least this season, in head-to-heads, the figures and stats won't tell you that.
Yeah.
Derbies will inevitably at some point start to mean far more in the season, because Rangers can only get better. Can we then also get better? That's the most important thing, because we won't get the rolls of the dice that we did, the break of the ball this season. Every time it won't happen.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And listen, I thought the referee as well had a bit of a Snyder, and that's not an excuse. I thought he tried to slow the game down a hell of a lot. There was a lot of play acting by guys like Butland and Diamandi and whoever else was on the deck. There was so many of them at one point, lying on the ground, time wasting and basically slowing the game right down. And I think that played right into their hands. You see the Celtic players rushing to get the ball and trying to get the ball away again and things like that. And it's just that wee stupid things like that totally change the outcome of games. Now, yes, you looked at our bench, and I looked at it at the start of the game and I thought, that's a poor bench. It's a really poor bench. And do you know what? It's been a while since we've done that. We spoke about the like-for-like players coming off the bench and taking off a guy like Nicholas Kuhn and bringing on someone who's of similar standard, and you're bringing Yang on for him, or you're moving Jota across to the other side, and it's not ideal, is it? You're not. You couldn't take anybody off in the middle of the park because you're two young boys in
by
there.
necessity, isn't it? It's adapting by necessity. We're fortunate that we can do that with Maeda and we can do that with Jota, and they've got that versatility in them. But the reality is we are just playing with the same pieces. We're just trying to shuffle them about a wee bit.
Right.
100%.
That's the thing. I mean, what's your takeaways from it, Paddy, in terms of, obviously we pick ourselves up, right? We know that. We'll cruise on. There's a slight delay in the winning of the title. It could well be that it comes against Rangers at Ibrox, but again, I just want, based on what you've seen, again, looking at it in isolation, it's not to write off the team and try to be negative, but the balance of power in the head-to-heads, and probably maybe even the betting odds, it means nothing again, but when you look at the game at Ibrox, you've probably at this moment in time, where you want to admit it or not, got to say Rangers are going to have favourites to win it.
Yeah, they probably will. I'm confident after the second half performance. I thought we performed a lot better in the second half. Did we get a trophy for winning the second half? No, is that just what
I don't know. We might have got the moral victory win.
Moral victory, aye, for that. But
I don't think that means
we didn't even get that.
Yeah, exactly. But listen, we played a lot better the second half. First half was just, like you said, Steve, it was a write-off. It was horrible. There was far too many passengers in there. There was far too many people just not up for it. And if you can't get up for a Celtic Rangers game, then you don't deserve to be at the club. The jersey was far too heavy for a few players. I've said that so many times, and
yeah, I totally agree.
We just need to up their game. We need to be fighting for every single ball, and there was far too many people backing out of tackles, and this, even the control, some of the passes when they're trying to control the ball and things like that. It was just horrible, mate. It was a hard watch. But
I would say some of the passing was terrible because it was just far too heavy footed and just no control when skating it as well. It was stumbly. It was very, very stumbly the entire game, no matter what half you looked at.
Exactly, but listen, going forward from it, we take that in the chin. It's one of them. You can't win them all, isn't it? That's one of you just take it. You go, right, fair enough.
You can't.
Bring on the next game. You're only as good as your last game, but listen, going forward, we just get the head up and go forward. We just charge on. We're going to win the league. We're going to win a treble. Do you know what I mean? Let's face it. It's in our own hands to do. So let's get it done.
It's a tough pill to swallow, of course. And again, see the comments, can see the opinions. It's one game, it's this and that. We're still getting, and yeah, do you know what? We'll take comfort in the trophy hall. And when you look back in the season and you look at the pictures, it'll be Celtic holding the trophies, and it'll probably be a steady and large lead that's won you the title.
Yeah.
But again, as we say, it is one of the ones people are trying to ask questions. Oh, would you rather win every game against them and win nothing, or would you rather take these? No, the answer is that's a real tight grey area question, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to get bested by them over the 4 matches. That's what you don't want. If it's 2 apiece, cool. Get the advantage over them, absolutely. Regardless of whether you win the title or not, you don't want to get bested by them. You don't want it to be 3-1. You know what I mean? Or 4-0 or whatever. You don't want that to be happening.
I do take solace in
2 wins for them and 2 draws or something. You don't want them to have got the better of you, because the reality is, as we say, that I know it's only bragging rights and that, and the titles and everything are the most important, but there is still that element of it, because it's narrative, and I know it is only narrative, but when titles used to be decided by large on the head-to-head games, you knew that those are the ones to do it. There'll be a million and one excuses for them. Well, see, if we get our act together and we didn't lose to St Mirren, and we didn't lose to Motherwell and everybody else that have dropped points to, we would, and it's if coulda, woulda, shoulda, right?
Aye.
But that'll always be spun, and that'll come into it, and that is the reality. There's going to come a point where eventually they will start to beat these teams again more regularly and comfortably, and the chances that they pass up the bottling of it when we've dropped points, that won't always happen. It won't always happen. Now again, they imploded. Of course they did. We've seen that time and time again. But the reality is remember, they were, and that's the thing, were being the main word, they were potentially only a few results away from it becoming really tight. And these games really, truly meaning something. Fortunately for us, the arse fell out them. Yeah. But that's my takeaway for it. We can't be complacent, because the slices of fortune that we've got and luck this season, that can't go on forever. It just can't. And
I think it's the word of the day. It's the word of the day. Fucking Brendan Rodgers has to have that written up on a big whiteboard in the middle of the Celtic Park or something, saying complacency. We cannot let that come in to be the factor in any match that we play. No matter who it's against, doesn't matter whether it's, as you say, Motherwell, St Mirren, whoever, doesn't matter. No complacency, zero complacency. We cannot let it happen again. Simple as that.
No, that is the thing. Hopefully, you're hoping that the players take real stock. Getting beat at Ibrox, comfortably is a tough one to take, but you'll always have that fallback on, well, it's their home, it's their crowd, we didn't have anybody there, we didn't perform, we didn't turn up, blah, 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 blah. See, when it's in your own backyard, that stings. That's tougher to take. That one, there can be no excuses for it. That is a hurt and a pain that we as fans know is very, very rare, but a lot of those players won't have sampled. And to see the disappointment, and to see that wee corner going mental, to see their, management team acting like, guys doing the boozer, that's got
You
to
nearly
sting.
didn't call them management team there, did you?
That's got to, no, I call them as something else, arseholes maybe. But to see them, celebrating and chest pumping and lording it over you, that's something that Celtic need to bottle, need to take on board and want to reverse that. That genuinely does hurt. That's something that they need to work on. And I hope that Celtic take real stock for this. I also hope that the manager really takes stock in the sort of undertones of arrogance of, I don't see any improvement and I'm this and that. It sounds great as a wee snippet and people eat it up and they love that, but it's slightly disrespectful and it makes you, to be honest, look like a tit when you get beat at your home by a team that are supposed to be getting hammered.
Yeah.
I agree.
Paddy?
I totally agree, mate. Listen, I agree with you. I just don't know what to say on it. Brendan Rodgers is coming out saying, oh yeah, Barry's not really done much as a manager and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Listen, we were on here as well saying that they're a bunch of clowns, basically. They're a bunch of clowns that have just went out and beat us. And it's as simple as that. They've scored 3 goals against us twice this season. And that's not good enough.
And that's the way to look at it. That's the way to look at it.
It's simply not good enough. Celtic at the back need to get a grip. There's just no cover there. There was no fight.
No. Hopefully, it's the season. Listen, the season will pan out. It'll end up successful. We know that. But again, we've just got to take stock of what's happened in front of us. And hopefully, this is going to be a double reminder. We did well in Europe. We outperformed, but you could see that we needed the extra to get through there. Hopefully, this is another situation where we take notice and say, we need more, even for the domestic front. We still need more because Rangers are going through a change again. How that's going to pan out, how that's going to look like, we don't know. But one thing's for sure, and it's happened time and time again, they will get reinforcements in. They might get a new manager. They might, who knows, they might decide that based on what they've seen with Baza, that's enough to keep him. In some respects, cool, I'm all right with that. But we can't take that for granted. And I hope that we do see this and we see that we need to improve because there's no doubt about it. Rangers can only get better. I said that and I repeat it again. Rangers can only get better. The reality is, and the big question is, can we get better? That's what we need to be thinking, mates. You know what I mean?
No, the fact of the matter is, when you're at the top, you can come down so easily. So we just need to make sure that doesn't happen. And as you say, get better. And get better in the places that the obvious weaknesses are. And that's the midfield for me.
Well,
do you know what I think it is, Steve-O? Do you know what I think the problem is, right? I done another one of the TikToks and I said that this was going to be the prize if somebody could predict the score. The signed Effie Ambrose print. That's twice I've done it. And twice we've got beat. It's twice I've done it and twice we've got beat, man.
Stop jinxing us.
We lick our wounds. They will be celebrating. Rightly so, as I said. Obviously, I don't want to give Rangers that much credit, but I'm also not ignorant. I think that they set up, they done what they had to do. Yep. They obviously done their homework. I think it's a sad indictment on our management team and our players that a team that had went to 120 minutes and penalties midweek were able to turn up and have extra energy and reserve to bounce through, to drag themselves through. They went through a dip. They had the changes. That was always going to be the big one for us. The benches really did make the difference. They were able to bring on 5, freshen things up.
Yeah.
Real threat options. Haji, Egaman ultimately gets it. Again, a slice of luck, but they take it. We were thin. We needed more, and it's disappointing. But yeah, we'll lick our wounds. We need to take it. In terms of the slaggings, whether it's social media, whether it's your mates at work or whoever, we've been lording it over. We've been getting it out enough, and it's part of football fandom. It's part of rivalry. You just got to suck it up. You've got to take it. It's no nice. It's a bitter one to swallow, but it is what it is. But I want to see improvement. I'm interested to hear what the manager says. I've not heard from him yet. I'm sure that when that happens, we will react to it throughout the course of the week and we get ourselves back. But not to be, is it? Not to be.
No, that's it.
Did you enjoy it? And just to finish up, did you enjoy the atmosphere, Paddy? talk to us about having the away fans back in. How was it? And obviously we didn't get to see it. There seemed to be a wee bit of trouble down in the Rangers bench. I think.
Yeah,
When they
I
maybe
was
scored
going
a
to
winner.
ask.
What exactly happened there? Did you get a view of that, mate?
Not too much of a view. Right at the very beginning, the Rangers fans pulled down one of the nets.
Right.
Did notice that they had that and they pulled it down and it was thrown to the kind of front basically. They made a lot of noise. Obviously, first half they were giving it big licks, as they would be, as we would be if we were 2-0 up. Silenced in the second half. Then obviously there was a wee altercation bit at the Rangers dugout. We never really seen much happen. What happened from my viewpoint, but there was a bit of give and take in there. But yeah, listen, good to have them back. Shite to have them celebrate in front of us. But it is what it is. Yeah, we're still champions. We're there. We're on the way to, was it 5?
Maybe them winning, Paddy, maybe them winning will be a wee sort of false economy, or they want to go back to full allocations because they'll hopefully think that they can do that at Ibrox and celebrate in front of 7,000. You know, maybe that'll happen.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think we can all see. Watch this space, by the way. I bet you they don't allow a single fan in. I guarantee you that.
I think they have to.
They do have to, is what I believe, but I bet you they won't.
Well, we'll see.
That's
Plenty to unpack, as we say. It's one of the ones. It's a tough one to take. We take it on the chin. Don't like that. I think that in terms of, to sum up for me, poor. I stick by it. Shameful, pathetic, embarrassing. They dragged themselves back into it. I believe that was a combination between a kick up the arse, a wee change of formation, but also largely by part of a very tiring Rangers. As much as I don't want to say that, I think that is the reality of it. There's a lot to learn. That's been 3 games, 9 goals conceded against them. Yes, we managed to do them in the cup final, but it's still disappointing back to back. We'll look at the next one and hopefully we can improve. Anything other than a victory in that game is a shameful end to the head-to-head for derbies for me. I think that's them, you know, and that's not me being ungrateful for the incoming double and potential treble. Absolutely not. It's just the reality. You know, I think it's unacceptable to have your rivals get the better of you over the course of the season in the games, regardless of how the title race pans out. But that's just me. Share your thoughts on that one. So, guys, listen, thanks for joining us. I know it's not the best to come on and do these ones after a defeat, but as we say, we never shy away from it. And Paddy, also thanks to you for, after the game, dragging your body in here. I'm pretty sure that you didn't necessarily want to have to come on and talk about this, but again,
what speed did you do on the way home, Paddy?
I got the train, mate.
Hey, there you go. Love it. Love it. So thanks to everybody for taking the time to join us. We know it's a busy time for podcasts. Everybody in their granny's podcast is on after this talking about it. So thanks to everybody for taking the time to come and talk about it with ourselves. We'll be back throughout the course of the week. I'm looking forward to hearing what the manager's got to see. I'm interested in hearing what all the mainstream media wants to say about it and see how that maybe manifests itself across there. Because I'm still of the opinion that it's amateur hour over there. They've got a victory. They've got probably a deserved victory over us. Is again as tough as that to say, but it is what it is. The title's incoming.
Over an axe wound, Steve-o. Is that what we're saying?
The inevitable has just been delayed. That's it, innit?
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
Sad faces, boo-hoo, but there we go. Go and get a can and stick on the Carabao Cup final if you want. There you go. I know it's hardly it's consolation, but you know that don't let the Sunday pass you by because of this one. Till the next time, take care of yourselves. We'll catch up with you and hail. See you later. Bye bye.